Alright, I feel that there's a bit of explanation due for this and some other videos. You see, I've been having a lot of trouble with Fraps. My microphone for TeamSpeak, Ventrilo, Mumble, and other Skype, whatever uses a microphone, seems to be working just fine. However, Fraps has decided to take the external audio from my microphone and butcher it, as in make it less than 25% of the volume. What I'm working on is trying to figure out the correct volume for the game and then pump that volume up with the microphone volume to make it audible. Until then, you're stuck with post-production. However, that gives me an opportunity to elaborate on the backstory of this game. Sword of the Stars is a franchise that's actually pretty darn old. It's been around several years, and we've got a pretty in-depth storyline. So the storyline, as far as humans are concerned, starts out somewhere in the year 2200 something or other. That's when they figured out warp technology. Their version of warp technology involves using gravitational anomalies to enter another dimension in which they can travel between entry and exit points. These entry and exit points are conveniently very near to gravity wells. So, what they do is they find a entry point near one gravity well, normally a star, but Jupiter is large enough to have its own little entry point. And then they find an exit point near some other star or planet. And they get along pretty well with that. The trouble is, every now and again they come across a choke point, and if that choke point happens to be held by an enemy, then they kind of get messed up. So, what I mean by choke point, every now and again, the paths, the gravity paths through this other dimension only connect through nearby stars, things that are close enough to each other to affect each other's gravitational orbits. And so every now and again, you get situations where there's only one way through an area. And there's problems there. On the other hand, they can move extremely quickly through these things, and they are relatively difficult to detect compared to other ships and other species. So the humans, they've got their first interstellar craft to send out a colony ship. They're trying to figure out what to do about it, trying to figure out where to go, and the ship is attacked just as it leaves orbital dry dock. The ship is attacked by a Hiver armada. Now, the Hiver are these insect-like species, and they've got a society that's built around serving the queen, who is basically mother to all of them. The queen sends out princesses, princesses do the queen's business in other areas and reproduce, and the queen is generally called the grandmother or some other reverent thing, and she's basically god over all of them. Well, spoiling the first game, this particular queen of this hive is a rebel who wanted to set her... She's a daughter to the queen of the stable colony on the Hiver homeworld, but she wanted to set herself above her mother, and so she went to a, she got on a spaceship, filled it full of guns, and flew off in a random direction. That direction, unfortunately, happened to be the human homeworld. So, the humans managed to destroy the majority of the escort with nuclear missiles that had laid in silos for hundreds of years. But, they still lost catastrophic amounts of population, basically. So, eventually, the humans, they go and they explore the rest of the universe. They put significantly more guns on everything on everything they send out, because the first ship they sent out utterly defenseless. Hey, the healing door. I forgot that was a thing in this particular playthrough. So, humans send out a ship, send out a lot of ships, begin to explore the galaxy. They come across Hyver that are not aligned with the Hyver princess, the rogue princess, and they come across Tarka, who are lizards, who I remind me more of gorillas. Tarka have a society that's based around three very distinct kinds of um, genders, really. They've got the infertile males, females, all fertile, and a couple of fertile males. Fertile males are kind of. They resemble silverback gorillas in behavior and social position. Like, in a group of gorillas, you got your females, and the females can pressure the alpha silverback any way they feel like it. But if the silverback feels that there's a crisis, or he needs to go beat the crap out of something, he goes and does it. So that's why I like to compare the Tarka to the gorillas more than anything else. Um, interest thing I find interesting about the Tarka is they have a Varkona, as they call him, and the position is if you had a Napoleon position, like a guy who was basically in charge of um, all the military, economic, and social policies all at once, and you had that position be dictated by a council of high-ranking females, then that would be what the Varkona is. Like, so the Varkona is in charge of military and economic stuff. There are some protocols for removing him if he goes crazy, but in general, the only control any of the females have over him is when he is when the Varkona is first selected. Um, Now in this society, the infertile males are basically trash. They are not given much in the way of rights or in the way of, well, social justice. Um, they tolerate it because they have a chance of becoming a fertile male, and it involves eating the unfertilized ovum of a female. And that's all I care to say about that one. So yeah, you got a Tarka society, which is in name dominated by a single male, but is actually controlled by all the females working together. So that's an interesting group, and they're not necessarily friendly to the humans, but they're not necessarily unfriendly to the humans, if that makes any sense. They are going to do what they want to do rather than do what the humans might find convenient. Which has gotten the humans and the Tarka into a couple of scraps in the past, but they kind of get along. As the Gunny Sergeant in this tutorial has mentioned, the interspecies marriages are a thing. His uncle married a Tarka female, and don't know how that works out, but that's a thing. So next off, we would have the Lear, and this is where things get interesting. The Lear are... they qualify as religious zealots, actually. So, I say that in that they are constantly trying to find and destroy what they call Sulka. So the Sulka are, according to them, Sul is ice. Now, I should have mentioned something about their biology. They're dolphins. When they get old, they turn into whales. But they're just aquatic mammals. So when they say that something is ice, they're referring to polar ice. Ice that's so thick they can't break it and get a breath of air. Very dangerous stuff. Ka is their word for a couple of things, which include song, soul, and mind. So when they call something a sulka, they call it... Well, let's see what the door trap does. Do I decide to go through this door trap? Oh, it's the blind door trap. Alright, so at this point in the video, I haven't figured out that I can actually see if I look really closely and squint my eyes. So I'm just gonna grid search the area around me with my knife and hopefully find whatever's hitting me. So we got a sulka, an ice mind. So they're trying to describe something that simply does not care about the life of lesser creatures. Something that's willing to kill them if it's convenient or if it's even fun. So we got two conflicting stories of what a sulka is. According to one story, the sulka are a interstellar species. They came and they enslaved the Lear. They force-marched the Lear through the Industrial Revolution in much the same way that Stalin force-marched the Russian people through their Industrial Revolution. Only it was global, and there was no contest to it. The Lear did not have any conventional weapons of war. So, the Lear died by the billions, trying to get their quotas met. And finally, the Lear used biotechnology, one of the few things they had researched, to a somewhat modern level, and they created a disease that attacked the sulka and drove them out. This disease was so effective that it managed to eliminate all local sulka, and they managed to eliminate the sulka from local space. And at that point, the Sword of the Stars 1 game begins. Sword of the Stars 2 game, we have a conflicting story of what a sulka is. In this game, we learn that sulka don't die until... the Lear don't die until they are killed. And they continue to grow and become more intelligent as they become older. So, when a Lear has lived many generations, he's seen all of his family grow old and die. He's seen many generations of younger Lear grow old and die. He's seen his children, their generations, grow old and die. And eventually, he stops caring about them. And he decides he's going to go off and do his own thing. And so they isolate themselves deep in the trenches of their planet. And they work on their own projects. And eventually they forget how to care about things. And that's when they're thought to become sulka. Sulka would eventually decide that they were going to go and go into space. So one by one, these sulka would enslave local Lear with their incredible psionic powers, and they would force the Lear nearby to build a spaceship suit that would then be launched into space, so that the that trap was kind of mean. Didn't have any other way out. So the sulka would then be in space, running around doing their sulka thing. Eventually, one Lear who was older than most of the sulka decided that it was unacceptable to let these sulka wander the galaxy free. So, this Lear, forever after known as the Black, both because of his coloration and because, well, get to that, he made them. He asked the Lear people, not by psionically commanding them, but by convincing them with his debates. He got them all to come in for a big suit building party where all the collective knowledge of the Lear was put into building the most advanced space battle suit that they'd ever created. And then they launched the Black into space, which they call the Black. So the Black becomes, in their minds, the essence of space itself. He becomes a godlike being who coordinates all Lear fleets. And he doesn't launch alone. He gets Lear in these little spaceships and he gets them to follow him into space so that he can overpower the Sulka and destroy them. And he's pretty darn successful at this. There were upwards of 50 Sulka at one time, but because of the Black and the Lear's efforts, they've managed to eliminate about all of them except for 13. So, that actually comes back full circle to the pit game. In the pit, we are fighting our way through one of the laboratories of one of the Sulka, the one known as the Blood Weaver. Now, he's called this, sorry, the only female one is the Siren. Odd note, Sulka and Lear are androgynous. They, Lear have both male and female genitalia, so they can be either the donor or the carrier for the baby Lears. Which is interesting. So, distracted by this game situation. So at this point, I have so many pistol rounds that I'm just wrecking everything. I've been able to just fire at will on all targets. And, you know, it's working because I'm a high finesse character. Pistols are a finesse skill. And I am successfully destroying waves of these monsters. These engineers learn how to be a good little soldier. Alright, back to the story. The Blood Weaver was best known for his bioempathy and for his bioengineering technology. All the Sulka, like people, have their own specialities. The Blood Weaver was very good at genetic manipulation and mucking about with life forms to make them more pleasing to his designs. Ooh, Proteans! Get out of here, Protean! There we go. Not gonna acid up my stuff this time. So, before the Sulka came, the first Sulka ever launched, there was a spacefaring species which was very dominant in the Sword of the Stars universe. These were the Morigi, and I call them space dragons because they're I find them to look very draconic. So, found a space pumpkin. Silly space pumpkins, taking up 4 slots and all. So, the Morigi are divided into a gender-separated society. You got your male Morigi, who are very light. They've got thin, hollow bones, and they are suited for flying about on their multiple wings in low gravity and low atmosphere situations. And they comprise the majority of the spacefaring group of Morigi. And they would fly about from planet to planet, doing trade, courting females, and basically being adventurers. Then there were these females, and the females are very serpentine compared to the very avian-like male Marigi. Um, the the female Marigi would stay on planets because they were simply too massive to get into space in an efficient manner. So they would eventually grow into these multi-ton behemoth of snake-like monsters that would wrap themselves around manufacturing plants and operate every step of basically spaceship fabricators all the way to the all the way from raw material to completion. One Marigi female doing all of that. So Zool pups, actually surprisingly lethal. So the Marigi females are Marigi females are sedentary. The Marigi males are mobile, and they basically had a monopoly on space travel for the longest time. Oh dear, I'm infected. Let's see if I can cure myself. I think this is the best way to cure myself. The medkit. There we go, that fixed it. Okay. So we're getting near the end of this episode. Next time I'll tell you about how the Sulka reacted to discovering there was a spacefaring species out there. Spoiler, didn't end very well for the Marigi. Zoolab Station is a crafting facility.